Hi, Gil. I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to speak to you. How are you doing today?
Doing very well, Sarah. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. So maybe we could just kick off with a brief introduction to this wonderful Christmas film, A Boy Called Christmas. What can people expect if they come to watch it?
Well, I see myself as the steward of a story that Matt Haig wrote several years ago in response to a question by his son, who asked him simply one night what Father Christmas was like when he was his age. And luckily, Matt is a master storyteller, so that sort of response became a bedtime story that then became a novel that has now inspired kids around the world, including this one, who read that book and saw in a character of Nicholas, the center of this story, this sort of Roald Dahl adventure that I dreamed of as a story lover, a kid who goes up against incredible odds to forge a mission and a journey through vast wilderness in the hope of finding his father and a mythical city called Elfhelm, a city that is central to his own story as a character. And along the way, he makes incredible friendships, some of them human, others others furry, and discovers in himself the ability to transform lives, including his own. And that is the story of A Boy Called Christmas.
And you know what? So obviously you'd read the book. What made you think this would work so well on screen? And do you feel in particular it's so refreshing to have such an original story? I mean, I think a lot of kids' films now, we're seeing a lot of remakes, aren't we? And or like very heavily CGI
Mm.
films. Whereas this feels more like the kind of film I watched growing up. There's like a tangibility to it, and there's so much magic in the story. So
Thank,
what
thank
made you
you.
think it would work?
Well, I definitely was excited by that tangibility and saw a version of this story that felt exactly like the sort of films that inspired me when I was young. Films like Neverending Story, where a lot of what was on the screen, was there for the cameras to capture. And these were films that changed my life as a young film lover and film goer. And I was so excited by the opportunity to create that sort of experience for a whole new generation of movie lovers. I also saw in Nicholas an honesty in character that was very refreshing. Matt Haig writes with an understanding of the full breadth of human character, not just the bright, joyous bits of life, but also the heavier bass notes that all of us know and that are rarely actually encountered in all audience stories. And I felt like I have a responsibility as a filmmaker, especially if I'm going to be making films for all audiences, to respect them. And that goes for the younger ones as well, so that they know that they're not being pandered to, but that they're given something that appreciates their ability to accept story in all of its dimensions. That for me was a really important way in.
And can you talk us through some of your casting decisions? I mean, you've got a little bit of a who's who of some of like, screen legends in terms of, our British stars with Jim Broadbent, Sally Hawkins, and, then also fresh faces like Henry. And you've also done some role reversals. I don't think we've seen Sally Hawkins perhaps play kind of like the evil character. So I just think there's some great combinations going on in there. How did you decide who to cast?
Thank you. Well, I think that casting is the most important job that a director has in making a film. There are lots of other things you do that have bearing on what the audience experiences, but nothing that creates as lasting of a change as the actor that you cast. The Sally Hawkins casting was really just me selfishly being desperate to work with Sally Hawkins and changing the gender of the character from the book with Matt Haig's support. In the novel, it's Father Vodal. And I had such a clear sense of Sally being able to not just command the screen as a villain, but to offer up a sensitivity so that there would be motivation for that character that would elevate what she brings to the screen. And with the rest, it was just really good luck. I mean, I love this cast. Dame Maggie Smith was a sort of, you know, pie in the sky casting wish. I was very much expecting that it wasn't going to work out, but luckily she had a prior relationship with our main producer Grant Broadbent on the Exotic Marigold films, and felt like she would at least meet with me to discuss the thing, and then that worked out, and so she came aboard. Jim Broadbent, Toby Jones. Toby, this is my second time working with him. He's as close to a film good luck charm as I have, and I hope to put him in every film I have going forward. And you asked about the younger, fresher cast or less well-known cast, and I would say that that Henry Lawful carries this film. Is if the film works with an audience, a big reason for that is that there is a naturalism to his performance, a sort of unaffectedness that is the reason that when something feels magical or affecting in this film, it is because of the reality that he is able to conjure through his performance, that allows some of the grander elements, the fantastical elements, to play with meaning.
And we were talking about the kind of tangibility that you feel when you're watching it. So how did you get that balance? Because of course you have used CGI, but when we're, you know, in the snowy plains, when we're in the forest, and then when we're, you know, in the elf land, you know, we really feel like we're there. Like, how much of it was a set, and how much were you shooting in these cold places, and how much was added in after?
So it's definitely a blend, but I will say that I was stunned by how much we were able to get on camera. So what you're feeling a lot of the time is reality in front of the camera. This film process began in north of the Arctic Circle, in Kilpisjärvi, in the wilds of North Finland, and that was the foundation for Nicholas's journey. And we really filmed there on the ground, in helicopters, on reindeer fields, and you know, it was like transformative, life-changing experiences for me as a human being and as a filmmaker. Then the first bit of proper acting in the film was shot on a frozen lake at the top of the High Tatras Mountains in Slovakia, in the middle of a raging snowstorm. And I had Henry and Indica and Toby Jones and an entire film crew all working through pretty extraordinary conditions to capture something that, for me on the screen, gives you the sort of reality that's just impossible to get at a stage. I'll also say that the production designer, Gary Williamson, and his team worked to build as much of Elfhelm as was physically possible, which is a lot. It's still shocking how much we were able to build. And so when you see the camera moving through the streets of Elfhelm, almost everything that you see in the on our plane, on the foreground and background horizon, was physically there and tangible, and that makes a difference. You know, the actors become aware of it, whether it's conscious or not, and it does inform a sense of place in their performance.
And you were mentioning as well, like some of the old classics that you grew up watching, like Neverending Story, definitely one. Princess Bride, you know, like with the reading of the story and the interruptions.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. 1 second, just 1 second. Hi, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm in the middle of, I'm Gil. I'm in the middle of an interview, sorry. Thank Gil. Yes. Sorry.
Don't worry.
That was very weird. A ring light was being delivered. If you could see the jury-rigged setup, it would all make sense. I've got a lamp balancing on a teacup with a candle holding it in place.
Amazing.
But sorry, please continue.
Oh yeah, so I was just thinking, yeah, like where maybe obviously it's based on Matt Haig's book, but you know, were you taking some inspiration from some of those other films like Neverending Story, The Princess Bride, the Santa Claus movie, and you know, maybe there's some nods to some of those films. And how does it feel to you that you might be making a classic film that the younger generation are going to remember until they're into adulthood?
Well, the last one is every filmmaker's dream, is that something becomes meaningful enough to an audience that it's something they carry over into their future viewing. But you can't you can't plan on it and you can't aim for it. You just, as always, have to make something that is that connects with you and with the audience on some emotional level. That's the goal. Everything else is gravy. There are definitely inspirations to moments that either excited me or made me feel awe or wonder in all of the films you just listed, and definitely informed the way that I approach the directing, the designing, and the making of this. I wanted as much soul as possible in this film, and soul comes from his perception of humanity behind the camera, whether it's through performance, whether it's through an artist who creates a line on a wall. The shadow sequence, which was a hand animated sequence that was lovingly created to conjure up something that felt nostalgic and again sort of emotional. All of that was done with purpose to try to break through some of the artifice of modern filmmaking and of holiday filmmaking, frankly, which sometimes can sort of just be churned out. And I wanted this one to be something that was, for all time.
And I think, like all great films, and particularly sort of children's films, you can kind of read it on multiple levels. So it can just be kind of a magical, entertaining journey, but there's plenty in there if you want to read into it. I was thinking a lot about kind of Brexit and, not wanting outsiders, also having kind of gone through the pandemic, people not being allowed to dance. It feels like we've all been, robbed of, even last year, felt like we were robbed of Christmas. So do you think this message of hope, is there like lots of nods to kind of like other themes in there?
I think the cool thing about storytelling is that it invariably becomes a reflection of the time a story is told, but it also has the magical power to be reflective to audiences in different eras in different parts of the world, because people are always looking for storytelling as a way to work through the issues of our time and culture. This is why storytelling is vital as a human trait. I will say that something that Matt's story and my own point of view as a filmmaker share is that we're humanists. We believe in the idea that humans deserve respect and love and kindness across the boundaries of country or race or gender or nationality, and that the elements that you just identified, which felt like they were offering up a point of view that was inclusive, those just come down to this basic humanist pretext that we have.
And do you think it's going to hit home differently, considering people do? I feel like everyone's looking forward to Christmas more than ever before, and so something that does have kind of a feel-good vibe to it, feels very Christmassy, has a message of hope. Everyone's just crying out for it right now. So hopefully it's going to hit home even more than you might have expected.
From your lips, I mean, all I could say is that I obviously would have loved if the last 2 years would have not included us having to cancel Christmas or turn inward and seal ourselves inside of our homes. But I am so hopeful that A Boy Called Christmas is something that families can share together this year and feel like it is a true celebration, not just of the holiday, but of the power of a group of people coming together to celebrate it. And that gives me a lot of warmth, thinking that it could end up being a story that brings families, especially now, especially as we're all clamoring for a meaningful way to connect with this holiday and to market, that this could be the right film for the right time.
And I think it was interesting what you were saying about kind of definitely allowing the characters to be more nuanced, but also having kind of that slight darkness. And obviously, like even the scenes that open the film, there's like clear deprivation for that father and son. So do you think that it's important not to patronize kids and to kind of have the darker sides and have the sort of feeling of reality in some of those moments?
All I can say is that I distinctly remember the feeling as a young audience, as a film goer, when I felt respected by a film or a story, and the times where I felt patronized by it. I remember that from a very early age. And obviously, I would cast my lot always on the side of a story respecting every audience member's ability to understand that there is a spectrum to every emotional plane. That there is a joy, there is a brightness, there's light, but that there is also darkness, and that is actually what makes a good story is that spectrum. And so I was struck by Matt Haig's writing and by A Boy Called Christmas as a book, that it didn't sugarcoat, that it was a fun and funny and adventurous story that felt like it had human honesty to it, and a bass note. And I felt like if I was going to do the book justice, and if I was going to make the sort of film that I wanted to be able to share with an audience, I would have to carry that tonal complexity into the film. And actually, it's a huge part of why I wanted to be the person making it, because I felt like I could make this a really fun experience for all audiences that didn't have to hold back from some of those more honest moments.
And just very quickly, can you tell us what else you might be working on, or you've got coming out soon?
Well, it just so happens that this Friday I have Ghostbusters Afterlife coming out in cinema. So I co-wrote with my partner and good friend Jason Reitman and executive produced Ghostbusters Afterlife. I don't know how much more than, hey, what else do you have going on I could give, because that is a big one. It's been a very extraordinary moment in my life to be out there promoting both films and seeing both films connect with audiences in similar and different ways. I'm just so excited to be able to have two stories I love so much in the cinemas. Yeah,
amazing.
and
thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and yeah, enjoy the premiere tonight and
thank you.
Publicity for Ghostbusters as well. Enjoy it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks,
Hope to talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.